injury law, and today's video is going to be about what you might want to think about before you get in a car wreck. Of course, you don't know that one's going to happen to you, and you don't know when it's going to happen, but there are some things that you can have in place that will make your life an awful lot easier if you've done them in time before you need to have them, rather than waiting a minute too long and trying to do them after you've already suffered an injury. Today, to help talk about this topic, I'm here with John McMillen, insurance guru extraordinaire. John, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do and how long you've been doing it?
John McMillen. I have been doing this for 31 years. My other jobs part of that was waiting tables, so I really don't know how to do anything else, but I have been an insurance agent for 31 years. I'm a CLU and a CHFC, which those are designations that mean that I studied a lot of stuff that most people haven't even learned, and I've since forgotten most of it anyway. But I've been doing this for quite some time. For 23 years, I've had my own insurance agency here in Marietta. And so yes, this is what I do, and he's right in having me here because I am an expert.
Well, John is my insurance agent, but he's also the insurance agent for a number of my clients. I've represented a number of people that John's written insurance for. And so we know, what are the things you need to have in place? Why don't you give us just a quick bullet points of what you'd want to have on your insurance policy, assuming that, like most people, you are at some point going to be involved in a car crash?
Well, one of the things that I think is most important, people make the mistake of thinking auto insurance is about their automobile. And about 1/3 of your premium has to do with your automobile if you have physical damage coverage. But let's be honest, if you didn't have physical damage coverage and you totaled that automobile, it would stink. But you'd financially get past it. But if you don't have the right coverages in bodily injury liability, uninsured motorist bodily injury, and medical payments were necessary, your life could be ruined.
Every state requires you to have liability coverage when you're driving a car on public roads. In Georgia, the minimum amount that you're required to have is $25,000 per person, $50,000 per incident. So if you get into a car crash, you injure one person, you need to have at least $25,000 worth of coverage. But as anybody who's ever been to a hospital knows, $25,000 does not get you very far. If you hurt somebody badly enough that they have to be admitted, in day one, that $25,000 limit is going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend people carry in general?
The absolute minimum is not state minimum. The absolute minimum I recommend is $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident. If you are the average middle class person, I recommend $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident. And here's the interesting thing. That will run you about $10 more per month than that $100, $300 I spoke of earlier. On the flip side of that, half the people going around Marietta Square here are carrying state minimum of $25,000. And so what do you got to do to protect yourself? Uninsured motorist.
You just took my next question.
In the state of Georgia, uninsured motorist is also underinsured motorist. They're one and the same, and more than likely you're going to have an underinsured motorist claim. That's why you want to have adequate coverage on that, because what if they make you a GIMP for life? Bodily injury, whether it's on the uninsured motorist or on the liability end, is not just for medical bills. It's for pain and suffering, which is a fancy lawyer term saying you're gimped up, you're messed up for life, you're never getting any better, and there's no medical science that's going to help you.
We don't say gimped up.
I do. The other thing is lost wages. You could cost somebody their livelihood. So you put someone in a wheelchair, or they put you in a wheelchair, you need to have adequate coverage and protect yourself.
And let me just jump in real quick and explain. The liability coverage that you have, that indemnifies you. That protects you from liability that you incur when you hurt somebody else. But somebody who comes along and hurts you, if they have no insurance, which I've seen too many times, or they have minimum limits, or even just a policy that just happens to be too low to cover the injuries that you sustain, your lost income, your pain and suffering, your extensive medical bills, you have the option of having in place for yourself a uninsured or underinsured motorist policy that basically steps in and acts as if it were the other guy's insurance policy. So he might hit you with a minimum limits policy, but you have, like in my case, I have $1 million policy. So if somebody hits me and I have significant injuries, there's an adequate policy out there to provide for those injuries. So what else, John?
Well, you want to talk about medical payments?
Let's talk real quick about medical payments.
Okay, medical payments is kind of a minor thing. I call it a gap filler. Hopefully most of you out there have health insurance. Most of you do have some sort of out-of-pocket. You've got co-insurance and you've got a deductible. My recommendation for most situations is to have at least enough medical payments coverage to fill that gap. In the state of Georgia, medical payments coverage is the very first thing to pay, regardless of who's at fault. So it might not be my fault. You clobber me, and you mess me up, I've got $10,000 of med pay coverage.
It's kind of easy to say that it's a minor thing when it's not you, but for a lot of our clients, medical payments coverage is hugely beneficial because these days insurance policies have massive deductibles. And so if you have I have a family deductible that's like $12,000 or $13,000, if I get into a car crash, have to pay for my own deductible, it's really nice to have that medical payments coverage that can cover that full deductible. So having $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 worth of medical payments coverage seems to me to be a good idea.
And you're out of work, possibly, so you don't have the ability maybe to pay your out-of-pocket. There'll be a struggle. You got to dip into savings. So that's another reason to fill in that gap. And it doesn't cost that much money to have that coverage.
No, it's pretty cheap.
Okay. Yeah.
So now we talked about a couple of things that you need to think about before you get into a car crash, so that when this happens to you, when somebody comes along and rear ends you at a red light or T-bones you as you're going through an intersection, you're prepared. You've got the coverages you need in place to take care of your medical bills, to help you take care of your family, and make sure that if you do suffer a long-term injury, it's going to affect your quality of life, it's going to affect your earning capacity, you've got the coverages in place to allow you and your family to make it through. So John, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Have a good day, everybody.